is there a song in your life that you heard so many times that when you hear it now, that gives you the shivers or that makes you feel uncomfortable?
That's very interesting. I've never been asked that question, but while I was writing the screenplay of Sleep, just to try and get into the mood, I did listen to the soundtrack of The Shining a lot, and I think now I must have heard the whole thing, the whole album, more than 100 times. And even the first time listening to the album, it gave me shivers. Watching it along with the film and listening to the score, then that gave me the shivers. But just listening to the soundtrack alone, it's such an eerie masterpiece that it's truly frightening. And I think now, although it still frightens me and it's still very shocking, I've listened it so much that just thinking about the album, it does give me this uncomfortable feeling of not necessarily being sick and tired, but just remember it's kind of intertwined with the memory of me agonizing over the screenplay and also and also the terrors of my one of my favorite horror films, The Shining. So it's a weird mix of this uncomfortableness.
So, would you say The Shining is one of your favorite films in this genre, or and was it an inspiration for Sleep particularly?
Yes, The Shining is one of my favorite horror films. I think it may be the favorite horror film of many filmmakers. Um, but funnily enough, while I was creating Sleep, I never really thought of it as like a reference or inspiration. But after the film was created, a lot of audience members they mentioned The Shining, and I realized that of course it was an inspiration, although it wasn't a conscious one. I watched it. I watched the film so much that it must have been flowing in my bloodstream, and its influence must have been oozing out every second of the time I was creating Sleep. So, in retrospect, yes, it's a major influence in Sleep, I think.
Was it also this big of a labor as for the protagonist in Shining?
A great question. No, of course it wasn't as tough as Jack Nicholson in The Shining. But while I was writing the screenplay, I could identify and empathize with Jack Nicholson a lot. Such a, such a torturous and a lonely process, I think, a solitary process that can, steer you towards the brink of insanity. And The Shining captures that so well. And although writing Sleep, it wasn't as tough as I don't think anybody who wrote any sort of script suffered as much as Jack Nicholson, but it was quite difficult, yes. And sometimes I did feel like, uh, uh, destroying things, whether that be a bathroom door or just writing nonsense on the typewriter.
Could you tell us a little bit from where the inspiration for the story came from?
Um, the inspiration, I think a lot of factors inspired me to create Sleep. One of them being the most personal, I guess, is my own sleeping habits. I don't have, I never sleepwalked before, and I don't have dangerous sleeping habits, but I snore very loudly, and I have a severe case of sleep apnea, where you don't breathe for certain amounts of time while you're asleep. And the interesting thing is, although not breathing, it's a silent thing that happens. My wife, who sleeps next to me, she always seems to wake up when I'm not breathing, and then she realizes that I'm not breathing while I'm sleeping, and she's terrified by that fact. And she she's she waits until I do breathe, and then she's relieved. But just the shock of witnessing that, sometimes she's unable to go back to sleep, and and spend the whole night sort of uh, being terrified by what she just witnessed. And I thought about, how harmless this sleep apnea thing is. It just harms me, but it terrifies my wife to no end. And the filmmaker, the storyteller in me, I think, wanted to explore that and wonder, what if my sleeping habits went a bit further and it was harmful, it was explicitly harmful to others? What would happen then? And I think just imagining the possibilities and scenarios kind of made me uh, wonder about what would happen, and it kind of manifested into this screenplay.
Did you ever think how? I mean, how did the theme, the topic of shamanism, then come into the story? Did you ever experience it personally, and maybe also related to your sleep habits?
As for my sleeping habits, no. My sleeping habits, they were more relating to the first half of the film where they try to overcome it with medical science. I went to a sleeping clinic like the husband character did, and we did all these tests, and then I received the necessary treatment, and I'm well now. And but if you imagine that things didn't go as well as my luck, I think just the nature of Korean society, although we are very, in my opinion, medically advanced and reliant on medical science, on the other end of the spectrum, we are also very rooted in shamanism. If you, for example, group 10 Korean people in a room, I'm willing to guess at least two people have, visited a shaman um, to consult about their lives, their luck, or maybe shoo away a negative ghost or invite a positive one for wealth or whatever. And I think there for for Koreans or for Asians, if things don't go, if all the reasonable, solutions don't pan out, then we have this last resort, I think, which is like relying on these shamanistic aspects, and it's almost it's so rooted in the society that it's quite natural. You don't think it's like a weird thing or a peculiar thing that they're doing. It just shows, how bad maybe the situation is and how desperate they are to overcome their problems. I'm not sure if I'm making sense, but yeah, that's my thoughts on the matter.
How much of researches did you do about shamanism for the film? Was it all a little bit what you already experienced, or did you do express also specific researches?
Interestingly enough, the research on shamanism wasn't as extensive as my research on, let's say, somnambulism, sleepwalking. I It was mostly grounded on, the just the people around me, the society I live in. As I mentioned before, I think Asian people aren't that unfamiliar with shamanism in their lives, so it's a familiar thing to be, and it surrounds our society. So there's that, and also, uh, I also while researching shamanism, I was researching like I was the wife character, So I kind of imagined what she would research and what she would find interesting, and kind of mix and match my sources, and just pick and choose what would work in my favor to explain what I'm witnessing or what I'm going through. And so at, at so you could say that it might be surface level. It's not as well thoroughly researched, but I, I I I was kind of trying to imagine what Sujin, the wife character, would be looking up when she was researching the symptoms of Hyunsu, if that makes sense. Just to add on to that, though, that being said, I the because we did cast there was a shaman character inside the film. There did require some more thorough research on that end. So while we were in the pre-production stage, our AD team did consult an actual shaman who told us, what the shaman character would do and how she would interpret what is happening, and she would consult us about, what tokens to use, and what she would do, what sort of exorcism she would perform to overcome the problems of this the wedded the married couple. So that was very helpful. Yeah.
Still, well, this was a real life character, let's say, who spoke to you about exorcism and this kind of rituals. But were there also movies that inspired you? There are a lot of movies that have exorcism in different ways as a topic. Do you have any that are particularly near
Absolutely.
to you?
Yeah. Um, just any sort of film, I think, that had exorcism in it that I watched before sleep must have influenced me heavily. The one that I can think of off the top of my head, I think, would be The Wailing by Now Hong Jin, which is a great Korean horror film, one of my favorites. Um, also, not Asian, but I think The Exorcist also has a lot of exorcism elements that I think pertain to sleep as well. What other? There are a lot of horror films that have shamanistic aspects that I can't think of right now, but I'll get back to you on that
Yeah,
when I
no worries.
do. Okay.
The two characters of wife and husband are at the center of the story, and I was wondering if you could say a little bit more how you developed their relationship. What were the most important aspects of their interaction?
The interesting thing about their relationship was that it really mirrored my relationship with my soon-to-be wife at that time, now wife, but then she was soon-to-be my wife, and I didn't really realize when I was writing the screenplay, but only after I've written it and I showed it to my then girlfriend, now wife, she realized she said to me, why are you talking about us? And then I realized the relationship they had was heavily revolving around our real relationship, and at the time, while I was writing the screenplay, as I mentioned before, I was soon to be marrying my longtime girlfriend, and so the topics of marriage and marital relationships were the things that I was thinking about a lot, and in a lot of films about marriage. They're quite cynical about the institution. The central conflict usually uh, derives from each other. For example, they have a massive fight, or somebody makes an irredeemable mistake, or they fall out of love, as time passes. And because I was at the cusp of marriage, because I was about to be married, I had a more romantic view about it, and I wanted to show a married couple who are really who are like best friends, who trusted each other, who really loved each other, and maybe throw an obstacle that's nobody's fault, and show how this married couple would overcome this problem as a married unit. And I think that sort of thing is something that was subconsciously embedded in my mind while I was writing the screenplay.
The two actors you chose to portray the two roles, did you have them in mind from an early stage, or how did they come to be?
No, I didn't have them in mind at all. While I was writing the screenplay, I didn't have any actor in mind because I was a debuting director at the time, and I realized that I couldn't. In reality, I wouldn't be able to pick and choose the actors that I want. And Chang Yumi and Lee Sun Gyun are like legends of Korean, actors. They're quote unquote A-listers who are, impossible to cast as a debuting director. So while I was while I when I finished the screenplay, and my producing partner, my producer, uh, talked about casting, he said, you know, if you had a dream, if you could have anybody you want, who would you cast? We won't be able to get them, but I want to know, what sort of actor you're looking for, so we can get somebody who resembles them, who has the similar qualities, but we can reasonably cast. And I said, well, if I had a dream, my wish would be to cast Chung Yu-mi and Lee Sun-kyun. And I thought the producer would then go on and then look for other, actors who would resemble them. But he said, good actors, they kind of gravitate towards interesting scripts, and let's just give it to them, and let's wait for their reaction, and just wait to hear what they think, and because that doesn't cost us any money. And that's what we did. And luckily enough, both actors, they really liked the script, and wanted to meet me. And we talked a lot about, what the project would be, and I kind of begged them to be in the film, and then they were gracious enough to say yes. So to me, it was like winning the lottery twice, being able to cut.
Would you like to say a little bit more about Lee Sung Kyun and how it was to work with him? Since it's, of course, he's one of the topics of the films, since he unfortunately passed away so recently. Maybe
Yeah.
you would like to share something to how it was.
Well, yes, it was a great honor, working with Lee Sung-joon. I think he's a genius. I think both actors are a genius, but in different ways. Lee Sung-joon, well, before I cast him and was able to work with him in Sleep, I just thought he was this, you know, I thought he was just, naturally very, very talented. He would just appear on set and then do his thing, and he would just nail it every time. But what I realized in Sleep was that he was such a hard worker. Um, every morning he would come to me with his screenplay, and he would open it, and it would be full of notes. It would be blackened with notes, and he would say, and we would have this every morning. We'd have this conversation about each line, and each emotion of each scene for his characters. He would say, "Director, I think at this stage, Hyunsu, his character, would say it like this instead of that. I think he would be more empathetic towards his wife rather than being annoyed. He came understanding what his character is. So that was such a that was such a great thing to witness as a debuting director, of how professional and how hardworking uh, this actor was. And because of him, we were able to really anchor down this character that was the husband character. One of the things that I was very anxious and nervous about the husband character was, in the screenplay, he was quite two-dimensional, because the wife character is the one who's very who's very operatic almost. She has very, a dynamic range, and she's able to show all sorts of I guess all sorts of different types of acting. But the husband character was mostly reactionary. So that really gave me trouble trying to figure out who this character was. But uh, Lee Sung-gyun, being the professional that he is, he just kept adding detail and detail to this character, and really made him feel like a person, which I'm very grateful for. And if he wasn't cast as the husband character, I believe the film wouldn't have worked, because the husband character would have felt too one note, too one dimensional. And I'm grateful that he was able to make him and mold him into real lifelike person with character. And another note about Lee Sang-joon, I mentioned that uh, the 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 acting of the wife character, she had more range and more things to show off, and the husband character is more reactionary. And I remember talking to Chung Yu Mi, the actor who plays the wife, and she was also quite curious about who we were going to cast as the husband character, because in her mind, what she did was pretty easy. She thought her acting was very straightforward because all she had to do was act whatever was on the page. But for the husband character, he had to act what wasn't in the page. He had to fill everything else that wasn't stated in the screenplay, and she was worried that the she really wanted like a veteran actor, a genius actor to play the part. And when I told him, well, the that part will be played by Lee Sang-gyun, she was more than happy. She was so happy to hear that, because she knew that Lee Sang-gyun would be one of the few people who'd be able to nail that role.
Most of the action of of the film and of the story plays in this a couple's apartment. And I was wondering if you could say a little bit more how you how the set design came to be, and what was the most important thing about the look of this apartment.
Um, the look of the apartment. It was a great challenge because I think that's 80% of the location of the film. So um, I guess just at face value, the main thing was to try to give it a different a lot of different looks, so that it doesn't just feel like one boring place. What was lucky was that the for us, what was lucky for us was that the film was divided into three chapters, so it gave us opportunities to give this place a three distinct looks. And we discussed this a lot with the cinematographer and the production designer. And our our rule of thumb was the location should really should emphasize the relationship and the psychology of the characters. So, for example, in Act One, where we wanted to show the love of the two characters, we wanted to make it feel warm and cozy. And so the production design and the cinematography really catered to that. And in Act Two, Chapter Two, we tweaked the production design and the cinematography to feel uh, to emphasize the coldness, the and almost the claustrophobic jail-like atmosphere of the house. And in chapter three, as you can see, as all hell breaks loose and it's just craziness. And we really wanted to emphasize that with the production design and the cinematography.
In Act Three, also the talisman of shamanism play. She decorates the whole apartment with them. Let's say, were they inspired by real ones?
Yes, they were inspired by real tokens. It was one of our ADs and the production designer. The two collaborated in trying to get the right talisman for this occasion, and I think they did some extensive research to come up with the final design. And it's my understand if I remember correctly, the shaman the real life shaman that we consulted, she also signed off on, yes, this is what it would look like for this occasion.
As for you being a first feature director, I wanted to ask you what do you think are the biggest challenges at the moment in Korean cinema to do the first step into this sector?
I think it's right now is quite different from when I debuted, which wasn't that long a time ago. But the landscape of the Korean film industry has changed a lot since then, which it's only been 1 or 2 years, I think. But still, the biggest challenge facing feature film debuting directors, and even even existing directors, veteran directors, is just how poorly the theaters are doing. So and the and how streaming services are replacing sort of theater films. And so unfortunately, right now, although I don't think that it will stay like this forever. Right now, not many Korean feature films are being invested, greenlit, compared to a couple of years ago. So that might be the biggest problem. But I do think there's also uh, an advantage that came out of this situation, which is that uh, I think the industry is realizing that the audience are craving, not just films. They're more picky about the films, which means that they're more picky about the story and the screenplay. So, what I think the industry sort of demands now are better scripts than before. Or they're not saying that the scripts in the past were poor, but I think everybody sort of had to up their game, and they want more I guess more polished, more interesting scripts, which I think means which creates this sort of level playing field for everyone. Anybody with an interesting script, I think, has as much chance as much, even if you're a debuting director, if you have an interesting script, you have as much chance as an already sort of established director to create your own film.
Sleep is quite a success, fortunately.
Oh, thank you.
Did you did you have was it easier to get already a production company to be interested in, or?
Yes, far easier, because before Sleep, it was the interest was zero, I think. And after Sleep, luckily, there has been much more interest about my next project. That being said, there's interest in there's interest by production companies, and there's also interest from financiers who are able to finance the film, which are two very separate things. And although I'm getting a lot of relatively more interest from for my next project, I guess it really has to do with the quality of the screenplay, and just the nature of the project, how interesting it would be, and that is still to be determined. And I think that would be the deciding factor of whether I get my next project greenlit.
Will it still be in this kind of genre? Or can you already say, will you
Uh,
do a horror genre thriller
I
script?
have a lot of I have a couple of projects in mind. Uh, Most of them are in a similar genre. One is horror, one is sort of like a mystery thriller sort of thing, and on the very opposite side of the spectrum, I'm always very I don't know why I shouldn't be embarrassed, but I feel embarrassed talking about this to fantastic film festivals, because I feel like I'm betraying them somehow. But my favorite genre as a film audience member is romantic comedies, and it is my dream to one day create a romantic comedy of my own. It's very hard. It's very difficult. I think the genre is very difficult to nail to, although every genre is very difficult. But yeah, so I'm trying to just crack that nut, to that egg.
Can you imagine also, would you like to do something? Well, we were talking about dramas. Would you like to do something in a serious format also?
In a series, as of now, my main interest is film. I really like, I really like the nature of film and a film playing in the theater. I like the length of the film. I like how you watch a film in a theatrical venue. Um, it brings me the most happiness as a film audience, and so as a filmmaker, that's what I would like to do, if possible. That being said, I'm also very fascinated about series, but it's still very new to me. As an audience member, I love watching it, but I as a profession, I never even kind of stick my feet in it yet, so I don't even know what it would be like. But I would like to uh, try my hand one day, just to see if it's something I can do. For example, after making a ton of short films, I wanted to sort of try my hand in writing a feature film script. It was a long time ago, just to see if I could do it. And after I realized that I could, I really went at it and wrote and wrote and wrote. And maybe it will be this case as well. Right now, I have this fear that uh, it might not be something I'd be able to do, but I would like to challenge myself to at least try and write something in a series length to see if I can do it, see what it feels like.
How would you describe yourself as a moviegoer? What do you prefer watching and where?
It really depends on which country I'm in. I just arrived in Korea, but before I returned to Korea, I spent a lengthy time in the States with my wife. And back then, we had this subscription service called AMC Stubs. AMC is a major, I think, theater chain in the United States, and they have this subscription system where we are able to watch three films every week. Uh, so what we did was um, we tried to always max out on the three films every week. So back then, we didn't really care what genre, what film that we were watching. We just wanted to watch any film that was on the theaters, just so that we can max out the three opportunities we had every week. And that is always such a that is, I think, the best way to watch films, because uh a it's just a fun thing you can do, like a dating activity you can do with your wife. And b, you don't become picky about the films you choose. You have three chances every week, so you just watch anything that you can get your hands on. Your expectations are very low, and you're just there to have fun. And I think that's the best mindset to go into watching a film. And the and just being able to watch it in a theater, that's the best thing, with the audience members laughing together, you know um, being touched together. And there's something about being enclosed in this theater, although you can go to, for example, you can just step out, or go to the bathroom. uh, you really don't want to when you're in a theater, if you know what I mean. Whereas at home, you can always just pause and take a break. But I think whenever you take a break from any sort of film or a series, the filmmakers or the series makers, they die inside a little bit, because you even the tempo of the film, the rhythm, it's it's all calculated by the filmmakers, so that you watch it in one sitting. They The assumption is that you'll be watching this thing in one sitting without pauses, and if you do watch it in one sitting, you do get the um, maximum intent. You do consume, or you do experience the intent of the filmmakers, and I think it's very important to do that.
And really, now the last question, since you were talking about it, which film is the best to try your date?
Do you know the film In Bruges by Martin McDonagh? I think that is a great litmus test for me, because I think the humor in that film is very distinct, and a lot of people love it, and a lot of people not quite get it. And I think if you do get that sort of humor, then we do have there's a high possibility that we would enjoy the same things. And thankfully, my wife also likes that film, and so we have similar tastes in films too.
This I think this is quite important as of, on my point of view also. You don't have to like every film together, of course, but it's good if you have some basis you you can
Yeah,
build up the
absolutely.
relationship
Yeah.
on. Very
It's
well.
one of our favorite activities, you know. A lot of the times, I think 70% of the times, what I like, she likes, and what she likes, I likes. But whether we like the same thing or not, our favorite thing is going to the theaters together and, you know, and exiting the theaters and coming out, walking back home. My favorite thing is, you know, talking about what we liked and disliked about the film as we walk back home. She really loves to do that too, and it's one of our favorite activities to do as a couple.